Hello guys, welcome back. I hope everyone is doing great. So in today's video, I want to talk about a new fragrance from the house of Guerlain, from the L'Art and La Matière line of fragrances. I have here a little decant of Vétiver Fauve. So this new release, 2025 release from the house, I think was met with polarizing opinions. You have some people that like this release from the house, and then you have some that have said pretty negative things about this release. And I myself have been curious. I personally like the house of Guerlain. Some of the releases in the L'Art and La Matière line of fragrances as of late have been a little hit or miss for me personally. But I did want to get my nose on this one, so I got a little decant, and I tried it on skin a few times, and we're going to talk about what it smells like. I have it here on my right hand. It's about a 2-hour dry down, but let's dip the blotter for a fresh take and talk about how it opens. So if you look at the official website, Guerlain basically describes the fragrance as a fresh take on Vétiver, a different take on Vétiver, a Vétiver that takes you into the jungle, a Vétiver that's contrasted with a fruity accord. There's a fruity accord in here. They describe it as a bold fragrance, and I'm not sure that I agree with all of those descriptors for the fragrance, but I will say that I enjoy this more in the dry down than in the opening. So it opens with a juicy sort of figgy / fruits. I definitely get a prominent fig component, but it's not a fig that's milky and creamy. There's something juicy and sweet and almost pineapple-y in this fruity accord to my nose. So I guess I would say that it's a combination of something fig-like and something juicy like the juice of a pineapple. So you have a little bit of tartness, just a little bit, and it is definitely sweet, which I'm not such a fan of. So the opening is a little too sweet and syrupy and fruity for my taste, but minutes after the initial opening, the Vétiver comes through. And I've read and heard some different takes on this. So I agree and I disagree with different things. Some people have said that they can't quite distinguish the fruits. For me, I definitely get something fig-like, and the other aspect is something, like I said, a little juicy, maybe pineapple-y. So that's the sort of fruit combo that I get. I do get Vétiver in here, and some have described this as a fragrance where they can't even detect the Vétiver. That I can't agree with. The Vétiver is definitely very, very prominent. It is a Vétiver fragrance for sure. After the opening of this sort of sweet, juicy fruit combo does come the Vétiver, and I would say that it's a 50-50 Vétiver fruity component all the way to the dry down. And so the sweetness, that juiciness, it does subside. It does. It's not as sweet as it is in the opening. And then when the Vétiver comes into play, I would say that it sort of balances the sweetness of this fruity concoction in the opening. I am not a fan of this fruity opening, by the way. It's definitely not my type of fragrance. I like Vétiver fragrances. The Vétiver in here is not a dark Vétiver, it's not a smoky Vétiver. It has grassy aspects. I get the grassiness. I definitely get the woody components in the fragrance. And in terms of anything nutty that comes along with Vétiver, I'm really hardly getting anything like that. Maybe I get something a little textured, like that gummy bear sort of chewy texture that comes along with Vétiver. That's as far as I would go with the aspects of the Vétiver. It's not coming off like an earthy Vétiver. It's coming off more like a grassy Vétiver, a little bit fresh. And like I said, there are definitely the woody components that come into play. But even though I would definitely characterize it as a Vétiver fragrance, you can't mistake it for anything else, I definitely get this sort of tropical vibe. I definitely get something damp. I definitely get green. But unfortunately, the fruity component in here, or that juiciness that comes along with this fruit accord, is not only a little too sweet for my liking, and again, it definitely isn't as sweet in the dry down as it is in the opening, but what I don't like is that it has a syrupy sort of nature to it. It's a little bit syrupy, and that bothers me a little bit. But I will say that as it dries down, I do like it a little bit more than in the opening. So the first time that I had this on skin, the opening was definitely something that I was not liking. And as the fragrance dried down, I thought, okay, this smells nice. I'm getting the vetiver. I like vetiver fragrances. I'm getting the elements of the vetiver. I'm getting this figgy sort of fruit that's not as sweet. It's not as juicy. And then I sprayed my bottle of Vétiver Tonka by Hermès on my other hand. I was just curious to do a side-by-side. And that side-by-side comparison sort of highlighted the fruitiness in this fragrance, this syrupy sort of fruitiness, where even in the dry down, where I thought, I kind of like this. It's not as sweet as the opening. It's not as fruity. It's not as tropical, sort of juicy as it is in the opening. Nonetheless, in comparison to Vétiver Tonka, I realized this is probably not something for me. It's not terribly sweet. It's not terribly synthetic. Even other fragrances from Guerlain that I find too synthetic, like honey tobacco, I find that one very synthetic. It's fun to wear sometimes. I still have a decant. This one doesn't go that far. This one, in my opinion, doesn't cross the line of synthetic, sugary, artificial smelling. But you have to like the idea of vetiver being paired with something syrupy, fruity, and predominantly fig-like, in my opinion. So in terms of the fruit in here, I would say that when it dries down, it's definitely more of a figgy component paired with the vetiver. In the opening, it's fig with something juicy like pineapple-y. So it definitely gets less sweet. It definitely gets less juicy. But nonetheless, even in the dry down, it's a vetiver paired with this fruity accord. So let's read what the official website says about the fragrance, how they describe this. So they describe the fragrance as a bold and colorful reinterpretation of Vétiver. Vétiver Fauve Eau de Parfum unveils vetiver in a new light, unexpectedly fresh, vividly alive. Blended with a tropical fruit accord, the fragrance becomes an invitation into the heart of the waking jungle. The scent evokes a wild world where nature takes over, an early morning jungle, untamed and alive with sound, color, and scent. A composition as vivid and textured as the jungle itself. So I'm not sure that the fragrance is taking me to the jungle, but that's the idea behind the fragrance. That's what this fragrance is meant to represent. And the fruitiness is still on this blotter, full on fruitiness together with the vetiver. On my skin, it's much more about the vetiver, and that fruity aspect maybe takes a little bit of a back seat. But like I said, when I compared it to Vétiver Tonka, I thought that's a fragrance that I would definitely choose to wear over this one. So it's not bad. I don't hate it. But as someone who does enjoy vetiver fragrances, I stay away from the ones that I feel are masculine leaning. I like Sycamore by Chanel. I like Hermès's Vétiver Tonka. So if I'm reaching for a vetiver fragrance, I would think that those are fragrances that I would reach for over something like this one. The tropical fruity accord, I don't think is necessarily my sort of scent profile. And I have a feeling, even though I've never gotten my nose on the original Guerlain's Vétiver, only because it's been described repeatedly as a masculine-leaning fragrance, so I never bothered to get a sample, or I would even blind buy it, but I've never even gotten my nose on the fragrance. I should get a sample, just as a sort of frame of reference. I have a feeling that for those people who like that fragrance, something like this is such a different take that it's only natural to sort of make the comparison, immediately compare, and maybe have a negative take on this for that reason, because you're comparing to something so classic, so iconic from the house with their original vetiver fragrance. So that might also be a reason for the negative feedback. I'm not sure. You guys let me know in the comments if you've gotten your nose on this release from the House of Guerlain, what you guys think. As always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.